The 1960s was a decade of daring in Britain. While the country was still shaking off the grey years after the war, a new generation of engineers, racers, and dreamers decided it was time to build something bold. They weren't just building cars anymore. They were building machines that pushed the very limits of what a driver could handle. Speed in the 1960s wasn't like speed today. There were no traction control systems, no anti-lock brakes, no electronic stability aids. If a car had too much power, the only thing standing between control and disaster was the skill and nerve of the person behind the wheel. Some of these British sports cars were so powerful, so raw, and so unpredictable that even experienced drivers admitted they were genuinely afraid of them. Today, we're counting down 10 British sports cars from the 1960s that didn't just thrill their drivers, they terrified them. Let's begin. Number 10. The Sunbeam Tiger. Launched in 1964, the Sunbeam Tiger looked innocent enough. It was based on a modest little roadster, the kind of car you'd expect to see driven gently along the coast on a Sunday afternoon. But Sunbeam had other plans. They dropped a powerful American V8 engine into that lightweight British chassis, and the result was a car that could accelerate far harder than its size ever suggested. The problem was balance. The Tiger's chassis was never originally designed to handle that much power. Drivers quickly learned that flooring the accelerator in the wrong conditions could send the rear end sliding without warning. It became known as a car you had to respect, not just enjoy. More than one owner described it as a lovely car, right up until it wasn't. Number 9. The Daimler SP250. The Daimler SP250 arrived in 1959 and carried through into the early 1960s with its unmistakable fin-shaped front end and fiberglass body. Underneath that unusual shape sat a genuinely potent V8 engine, one of the most powerful units Daimler had ever fitted to a road car of that size. On paper, it was thrilling. In practice, it exposed a serious flaw. The SP250 chassis had a tendency to flex under hard cornering, and its lightweight body didn't always stay planted at speed. Drivers who pushed the SP250 hard often found themselves fighting the car through corners, rather than enjoying them. It earned a reputation as a car that rewarded caution and punished overconfidence. Number 8. The Jensen CV8. Introduced in 1962, the Jensen CV8 combined a hand-built British body with a huge American engine, creating a grand tourer capable of shocking straight-line speed. Its fiberglass construction kept the weight down, which meant the power-to-weight ratio was far higher than most drivers expected from a car that looked so composed and elegant. Many owners bought it expecting a comfortable cruiser and were caught off guard by just how quickly it could get away from them. At high speed, the CV8's handling could feel unpredictable, especially in wet British weather. It wasn't uncommon for drivers to back off the throttle earlier than they intended, simply because the car felt like it had more speed in reserve than they were ready to use. Number 7. The Triumph TR4. Released in 1961, the Triumph TR4 was a leap forward in styling and engineering for a company previously known for old-fashioned roadsters. It featured modern rack and pinion steering and a sturdy 4-cylinder engine that rewarded aggressive driving. But that same eagerness to respond instantly to driver input meant the TR4 could feel twitchy at speed, especially on the narrow, winding country roads that made up much of Britain's road network at the time. Enthusiasts loved its honesty and directness, but that same directness meant there was very little margin for error. A slight overcorrection at speed could turn a spirited drive into a heart-stopping moment very quickly. Number 6. The MGB. The MGB, launched in 1962, is often remembered as one of the friendliest and most approachable British sports cars ever made. But even the MGB had a side that could catch drivers off guard. Its lightweight construction made it wonderfully agile, but that same lightness meant it could become genuinely unsettled at higher speeds, particularly on uneven or wet surfaces. Many new owners, used to heavier family cars, were surprised by how quickly the MGB reacted to steering input, sometimes more quickly than they were prepared for. It wasn't a car built to be dangerous, but it was a car that demanded the driver's full attention the moment speed increased. Number 5. The Austin-Healey 3000. The Austin-Healey 3000 was big, loud, and unapologetically powerful. Its 6-cylinder engine gave it real racing pedigree, and it performed impressively in international rallies throughout the decade. But that power came with a cost. The Big Healey, as it was affectionately known, had a reputation for feeling heavy and difficult to control under hard braking or sudden direction changes. Its size and weight meant that once it started to move in an unintended direction, correcting it required real skill and quick reflexes. Rally drivers who competed in the Austin-Healey often described it as a car that had to be tamed, not simply driven. It rewarded confidence, but punished hesitation. Number 4. The Lotus Elan. The Lotus Elan, released in 1962, was built on the philosophy that less weight meant more performance. Founder Colin Chapman believed that a lighter car could outperform a heavier, more powerful one, and the Elan proved his point. Its fiberglass body sat on a steel backbone chassis, giving it astonishingly sharp handling. But that same sharpness came with a warning. The Elan responded to every input almost instantly, which meant even small mistakes at speed were amplified far more than in a heavier, more forgiving car. Experienced racers loved the Elan for exactly this reason. Newer drivers often found it intimidating, describing the sensation as driving a car that reacted before they'd even finished thinking about the movement. Number 3. The AC Cobra. If there's one car synonymous with raw, unfiltered speed in British motoring history, it's the AC Cobra. Built from 1962 onward, the Cobra combined a lightweight British chassis with a massive American V8 engine, creating a machine with far more power than most road cars of its era were ever designed to handle. The Cobra's acceleration was so violent that even seasoned drivers described losing traction almost instantly if they weren't careful with the throttle. Its narrow tires, simple suspension, and enormous engine created a combination that demanded total respect. Stories from the era describe drivers who bought the Cobra for bragging rights, only to sell it within months after realizing just how much car they'd actually taken on. It wasn't just fast, it was a genuine handful. Number 2. The Jaguar E-Type. The Jaguar E-Type, launched in 1961, is remembered today mostly for its stunning beauty. Its long bonnet and elegant curves made it an instant design icon, admired even by rival manufacturers. But behind that beauty was genuine, serious speed. The E-Type could reach performance figures that rivaled cars costing several times its price. And at those speeds, its independent rear suspension, while advanced for its time, still required real skill to manage confidently. Many drivers pushed the E-Type to its limits on open roads, only to discover how quickly its performance could overwhelm an unprepared driver. It was a car that combined glamour with genuine danger, which is part of why it remains so celebrated today. Number 1. The Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato. At the top of our list sits one of the rarest and most fearsome British sports cars of the entire decade, the Aston Martin DB4 GT Zagato. Built in extremely limited numbers starting in 1960, this wasn't a car for casual Sunday drives. It was built for racing. Its lightweight aluminum body, combined with a highly tuned engine, gave it performance figures that few road-legal cars of the era could match. But that performance came at a price.
The DB4 GT Zagato had razor-sharp handling that offered almost no forgiveness for driver error, and its raw power output meant even a small mistake at high speed could have serious consequences. Racing drivers who competed with the Zagato described it as thrilling but utterly unforgiving, a car that demanded absolute focus every second it was in motion. Even today, collectors treat surviving models with a mixture of admiration and caution, aware of just how much performance sits beneath that beautiful bodywork.
What connects all 10 of these cars isn't just their speed, it's the honesty of that era of engineering. These weren't machines built with layers of electronic assistance to protect the driver from their own mistakes. They were raw, mechanical, and demanding, built by small teams who believed that real performance meant real risk. That risk is exactly what made them legendary. Every one of these cars asked something of the person behind the wheel: skill, respect, and total attention. And the drivers who mastered them became part of British motoring folklore. Today, these cars are treasured not despite their intensity, but because of it. They remind us of a time when speed wasn't managed by computers, it was managed by nerve. That's the real story of Britain's most fearsome 1960s sports cars. Not just fast machines, but true tests of courage on four wheels.